On this Saturday night, a final push for votes in the U.S. presidential race.
I'm nervous. I'm very nervous.
The dead heat in crucial states.
This is an election that you can't sit out.
And what's at stake in the fight to control Congress. Plus, the new book revealing Donald Trump's decades as a lucky loser.
I'm still surprised that people buy the idea that he's a successful businessman.
Deepening dispute.
Such irresponsible actions will have serious consequences.
New accusations against India and tense protests here at home. And Vinsanity returns to Toronto.
And here is Vince Connor with his first stop.
The Raptors' historic retirement of number 15.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Sophie Louie.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The final sprint to the U.S. presidential election is underway. With just 3 days left, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are trying to reel in every last vote in key battleground states. Today, Harris hit Georgia. Trump visited Virginia, and both scheduled dueling rallies in North Carolina, states that are expected to be crucial in determining who will be the next American president. More than 70 million Americans have already cast early ballots ahead of Tuesday's vote. New polls show the race is still on a knife's edge, so picking up support on this final weekend of the campaign is absolutely critical. Reggie Cecchini is in Washington and begins our coverage tonight.
In a battleground state that holds the second largest electoral jackpot, one with no clear leader, Donald Trump sought to make his move.
The fate of our nation is in your hands. We win this state, we're going to win the whole ball game.
In North Carolina, Saturday is the final day for early voting, where turnout records have already been broken, even with obstacles left behind by Hurricane Helene lining the path to polling stations.
Trump has been very good at turning out new voters. In 2016, he had people coming to the polls who'd never voted before. So he has a history of bringing new people into the electorate.
While Trump eked out a win in North Carolina in 2020, it was Democrats with the narrow victory in Georgia.
When you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for.
This is the state where Kamala Harris began her weekend in an effort to build on prior success.
She stands for all of us, so I'm behind her.
The swing through the Southeast is a final attempt for candidates to push people to the polls in a race where rhetoric has been fiery amid incredibly high stakes.
Is she a contender? What the hell is she?
In Wisconsin, a state Trump lost by only 20,000 votes 4 years ago, he acknowledged winning is not a given.
You gotta get out of the vote. Just gotta get out.
Recent polls are suggesting Harris has regained leads in the northern swing states, including Michigan, where she's closed the gap when it comes to trust on the economy.
Our unemployment is down to 4%. That's pretty damn good.
As president, I will get up every day and fight for the American people.
To gain maximum exposure, this ad will be featured during Sunday's NFL games, an opportunity to reach out with one final offer to the few undecideds that remain. But with no certainty over who will win on Tuesday, it's left a sense of uncertainty in the American capital.
It's a sad state for the democracy in the United States.
Seeds of doubt over election integrity have been sown by Donald Trump, raising the potential for legal and civil unrest, determined by an outcome that could take days. Reggie Cecchini, Global News, Washington.
While the main focus has been on the presidential campaigns, there are several down-ballot races that could play a pivotal role in the future of the U.S. Eric Sorensen breaks down some of the tightest contests and how their results could swing the balance of power next week.
All eyes are on the top of the ticket.
Are you ready to make your voices heard?
You've been waiting for this so long. Get out and vote.
But whoever wins the presidency will need allies in Congress to pass laws, approve judicial appointments, and make decisions on spending and taxes. In the Senate, Democrat Joe Manchin's retirement makes West Virginia ripe for a Republican pickup. John Tester's Democratic seat in Montana is another prime target, and so is Sherrod Brown's seat in Ohio, say analysts.
Democrats in Washington badly need Sherrod Brown to find a way to win this race.
Democrats have far fewer chances to flip Republican Senate seats.
This is an election that you can't sit out.
Colin Allred in Texas may be the Democrats' best hope, but against Ted Cruz, it's still a long shot.
It's all about turning Texans out to keep Texas, Texas. That's what the race is about.
A change in the Senate would make it easier for Donald Trump, if he's elected, to make appointments like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be in charge of health policy.
This is an anti-vaxxer, so a Democratic Senate might block that. A Republican Senate might push it through. 51 Republican senators means Donald Trump will be able to surround himself with, the people that he picks much more easily.
The U.S. Senate could well change hands. The Democrats' 51-49 majority is in peril if one or more of their seats fall to Republicans as expected. But the reverse could happen in the House of Representatives, where Republicans have a slim majority, 220 members to 212 for the Democrats, with 3 vacancies. There are multiple close races with control of the House hanging in the balance.
Flipping just a few toss-up races could make Democrat Hakeem Jeffries the new House Speaker. On policies from health care to green energy, the two sides don't agree on much, except how far apart they are, says the current Republican Speaker.
We're not in a battle this time just between two different political parties. It's much deeper than that. There's something much more fundamental going on. We're in a battle between two completely different visions for who we are as a nation and who we're going to be.
Now, Donald Trump's talked about some pretty drastic changes in immigration policy, and a lot of those things are on the table with Republicans in the House and Senate.
Major changes could come quickly on immigration, taxes, and spending, especially if Republicans win the trifecta: the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Later in the newscast, a conversation about Donald Trump, his lucky rise to the top, and the role the media played to get him there.
He was able to manipulate the media, who didn't really question him. And at the time, he's sort of this celebrity in New York, and a lot of people just kind of let this thing go by.
Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Suzanne Craig on Trump's decades as a so-called lucky loser. Well, the UK is marking a political milestone tonight as the Conservative Party has named its new leader, the first black leader of any major party in Britain.
But this is not just about the Conservative Party. It is about the people we want to bring back to the Conservative Party. It is about the people we need to bring into the Conservative Party.
Kemi Badenoch replaces former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who was voted out of office. The 44-year-old former cabinet minister is vowing to return the Tory party to its roots, challenging what she calls institutional left-wing thinking and promoting free markets and small government. And New Brunswick has sworn in its first female premier. Susan Holt, along with her 19 cabinet ministers, taking the oath of office in the legislature today. The ceremony marked the official transfer of power from outgoing Progressive Conservative Premier Blaine Higgs and his cabinet after Holt's Liberals won a majority on October 21st. Well, there are new developments in the escalating diplomatic spat between the governments of Canada and India. Ottawa accusing one of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's top lieutenants of greenlighting crimes here in Canada. But today, Delhi hit back. Here's Taria Isri.
A heavy police presence outside Vancouver's biggest Sikh temple. A BC judge ordered protesters to keep their distance from Indian consular officials gathered at the Gurdwara. The latest sign of simmering tensions between Canada and India.
Government of India protests in the strongest terms to the absurd and baseless references.
India's Foreign Affairs Ministry tried to discredit Canada's allegations that the country's second most powerful politician authorized crimes on Canadian soil. Home Minister Amit Shah, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's right-hand man.
David Morrison.
This week, Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister David Morrison confirmed Shah's alleged involvement and told MPs he first shared that information with the Washington Post.
India is coming at us full force with their own narrative.
There is now an ongoing diplomatic struggle between Canada and India for Washington's attention.
Joining us today.
Earlier this month, the RCMP laid out explosive allegations linking agents of the Indian government to murder, coercion, and violence, allegedly contracting criminal organizations to target opponents. India has repeatedly dismissed those allegations and any suggestion it had a hand in the killing of Sikh separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in BC.
Canadian CDA.
India's Foreign Affairs Ministry says it summoned a Canadian diplomat Friday evening in protest.
Such irresponsible actions will have serious consequences for bilateral ties.
Canadian security officials accuse India of spreading a, quote, false narrative and say the Indian government continues to deny the links and evidence they have presented. Sophie?
Taria Isri in Montreal tonight. Thanks, Taria. Well, the outcome of the U.S. election will have repercussions far beyond America's borders. Coming up, how Tuesday's vote could be critical to the Russia-Ukraine war. Rescue and recovery efforts continue across eastern Spain tonight after a year's worth of rain fell across Valencia on Tuesday. At least 211 people are confirmed dead, making it Spain's worst natural disaster in modern history. 5,000 soldiers with the Spanish army are on the ground, going car by car, looking for survivors or victims, or plucking people stranded by the floodwaters from their rooftops. Hezbollah is claiming responsibility for a series of missiles fired into northern and central Israel today. The Iran-backed militant group claims it was targeting military facilities, but some projectiles landed in residential areas. Rescuers, some of them local residents, scrambling to find any survivors amid the debris. 19 people were injured in the attacks. Russia unleashed its latest overnight drone strike on Ukraine, targeting Kyiv in an attack that is reported to have lasted hours. All drones are said to have been shot down, but at least one injury has been reported, along with several fires and damage at residential buildings. That attack comes as those in Ukraine keep a close eye on Washington and the upcoming presidential election. As Redmond Shannon reports, many in the country believe their future is largely in the hands of American voters.
Ukrainians are fully aware that the US is by far its biggest backer in this war. This man thinks no matter who wins the White House, his country will ultimately lose. He says Harris will drag out the war, but Trump would give away part of Ukraine to Russia.
I believe I will be able to make a deal between President Putin and President Zelensky quite quickly.
Whether such a deal would mean Russia keeping some or all of the land it illegally occupies remains to be seen. But if Trump withdraws some or all of US support, Kyiv will be vulnerable. Trump and Zelensky have a rocky history. While President Trump was impeached over accusations he pressured Zelensky into revealing information about Hunter Biden's business dealings with Ukraine. Veteran journalist Bob Woodward claims Trump has spoken with Putin 7 times since he left office.
I have relatives I don't talk to 7 times in 4 years. I mean, what is he talking about?
Former US astronaut Scott Kelly is now an ambassador for United 24, raising funds for medical personnel and resources like ambulances in Ukraine.
We have the largest economy in the world. We have the capability to multitask. And I think one of those tasks needs to be continuing to support Ukraine.
Even if Harris wins, so much will depend on the U.S. Congress, where Kelly's twin brother Mark is a Democratic senator representing Arizona.
And I think it's appropriate to continue to look at what their needs are. How can we make adjustments? What new weapon systems are we going to provide to them?
Would Democrats retain control of one of the 2 houses, probably the House of Representatives? That would give her a bit more leverage in trying to pursue the bipartisan approach, which is what we finally saw succeed in April.
The world watches and waits for Tuesday, perhaps nowhere more so than in Ukraine. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Ahead, lucky loser, the reality of Donald Trump's tycoon image. Donald Trump has built a persona of himself as a successful billionaire businessman, but a new book reveals a far different picture. Lucky Loser: How Donald Trump Squandered His Father's Fortune and Created the Illusion of Success details Trump's decades of financial failures and rebounds. It's written by Canadian New York Times journalist Suzanne Craig and her colleague Russ Buettner, and it's based on years of Trump's tax returns and business records. Suzanne Craig joins us now from New York. Suzanne, thanks for joining us. Your book traces Donald Trump's origin story, but it was really his father, Fred, who first established the Trump name and family fortune. What strikes you about where Donald Trump took that family business, and what do you mean by lucky loser?
It's interesting because Fred Trump was really a master builder of his time. You know, when he had an empire, he built houses and large housing complexes out in the outer boroughs, and a lot of those were built during times of need in America, after the World War, after the Depression, and he took advantage of government programs to do that, but he built this empire on that, and it was just real estate. And I think what's notable about Donald Trump is he started out in real estate, but then he branched out into all these things he really had no expertise in. And our book is called Lucky Loser because he has had luck in his life. He was born the son of Fred Trump, and that came with a lot of wealth. And then he met Mark Burnett, the television producer, who chose him not because he had, I think maybe Mark Burnett thought he had great real estate experience, but that didn't matter. Whatever his business expertise was, he was hired to be a reality television show host, and he got hundreds of millions of dollars from that. But what's notable is the loss over the years is that he poured all of this money that he had, he'd gained from this luck, into businesses that he really had no expertise in. And when we saw his taxes, we kind of confirmed what we thought, which is most of his businesses year in and year out lose money. We're not talking things like depreciation. They just lose money.
Do you see parallels in his business origin story with his political origin story, or the illusion of success that he's now built into this political persona?
You know, what we found, which was interesting, is our book stops at the doors of the White House, but we felt when we finished it, and when readers should close the book when they're done, is that they know the guy that they're getting in the White House, and that is the guy who media becomes a big part of our story, and how the media was culpable in creating this image. And I'm not just even talking The Apprentice and sort of how, you know, that show, which has to be one of the greatest political ads of all time, how that crafted his image, but how Donald Trump started in his 20s by lying about his wealth to, you know, the New York Times, the paper I work for, other publications, CNN, TV show. Very few people were able to see what was actually going on, and he was able to manipulate the media, who didn't really question him. And at the time, you know, he's sort of this celebrity in New York, and a lot of people just kind of let this thing go by, and that lie passed down into history did become truth, and he's still using it today and claiming to be a successful businessman, and a lot of people say they vote for him because of that.
But even though that reporting is out there, like your reporting, your co-author Russ Buettner's reporting, it's out there, so it's in the public realm. But he maintains his popularity. Why do you think? How does he manage to do that?
I think that's complicated. It's a question Russ and I sort of talk about a lot. I don't know if we have a perfect answer, but I think there's a couple reasons. I think when you talk to American voters, they know he's some of them will acknowledge he's not a good businessman, but they're going to vote for him on immigration, or they're going to vote for him because they think he's going to be better on the economy. They have their reason, whatever it is. And then there are people who still think he's a good businessman, and when you challenge them on that, they'll just say, oh, well, he has great accountants, or it's, you know, the mainstream media is making it up. And I think when you come down and you think about sort of macro what's going on there, I think that a piece of Donald Trump's luck, you know, another piece of his luck, and we write about it in the epilogue, is that he's now entered sort of these media bubbles where they're just, you know, they're self-affirming and people hear what they want to hear.
Yeah, fair point. Suzanne, does anything about Donald Trump or this election surprise you at this point?
Wow, does it surprise me? I'm still surprised that people buy the idea that he's a successful businessman. But I think his success, I marvel, I'm Canadian, and I marvel still at America's willingness to follow this guy and with everything that's known about him, forget just my corner of the world and the finances. But the criminal trials, he's been found criminally liable. I mean, just everything that we've been through, January 6th, all of that. It's surprising to me.
All right, Suzanne Craig, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on the book.
Great, thank you.
And on Tuesday, we will have live coverage of America Votes, a Canadian perspective on this historic election. Donna Friesen will be in Washington, D.C., and we'll be streaming live beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, wherever you watch Global News, including BC One, globalnews.ca, YouTube, the Global TV app, Pluto TV, and Prime. And more Canadian sporting history will be made tonight. Vince Carter's number 15 jersey will become the first ever to be retired by the Toronto Raptors. In advance of the honor, Carter said it's not just his name and number being raised to the rafters.
I'm experiencing this with family, friends, strangers. I know it's my day, but this is our day.
On Friday, Air Canada unveiled a plane painted with Carter's jersey number and silhouette. He was the Raptors' first big superstar, known for his high-flying dunks, and whose success inspired a new generation of Canadian basketball stars. And one final note, daylight saving time is coming to an end. A reminder to set your clocks back an hour before you go to bed tonight. That's Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Sophie Louis. Tonight's Your Canada is Lac Bromont in Bromont, Quebec. Thanks for watching. Hope you can join me again tomorrow. Have a great evening.